What's up guys, and welcome back to my Pokemon Sun and Moon coverage video, and today we are going to be talking about Tapu Koko as well as the other three Guardians of the Alola Region and what they might be, how they might fit together. Obviously we now know what Tapu Koko looks like and also what typing it is and sort of ability and stuff like that, so we can actually speculate on what the rest of these Guardian Pokemon might be like and how they might all fit together. So, first thing I'm going to mention as well is in the trailer we see this section where Tapu Koko sort of swoops down, takes out 3 Spearow, and then comes at the camera. This could well be the first time you meet Tapu Koko, because we know we meet Tapu Koko before we have this festival area, because obviously Hala mentions it. So it might be that the fact we're out walking and a flock of Spearow, 3 Spearow, start attacking us, and then Tapu Koko swoops down because he's the guardian of the island, takes out the Spearow and saves us, and this might be the first time we meet him. Just something I was going to throw out there. But it seems to be very clear that the 4 guardians of the islands of the Alola region are based on the 4 great gods in Hawaiian mythology. These are Ku, Kanaloa, Kane, and Lono. Okay, you got that? Cool. Ku is the god of war, and he also apparently caused light to shine upon the world, along with Kane and Lono as well, though. Kanaloa is the god of the underworld and the teacher of magic, is represented by a squid or an octopus, and sometimes is also depicted as evil or death, so he's sort of like the outsider, I guess. Kane is the god of procreation, apparently he's the highest of all 4 of the gods. And also is the creator and gives life associated with the dawn, the sun and the sky. Then finally we have Lono, who is associated with fertility, agriculture, music and peace. So he's like the little hippie one. So the 4 gods, and what god is Tapu Koko based on? Well, he's based on Ku, the god of war, as well as the person who, the one who caused light to shine upon the world. Hence electric type, shining light on the world. Also, god of war, electric is kind of a very offensive type. If you get, it's not like a direct link, but it could be construed that way there. So we have these 4 gods, and if we assume these other 3 are going to be, also giving inspiration for the Guardians, we can talk about their typing and how they could also fit in here. So obviously we have Tapu Koko being an electric fairy type. There are several ways they could do the rest of the typing. They could keep a sort of a theme going through them all, or they could just do random. We can't tell at the moment. For example, Kanaloa, the Guardian based on Kanaloa, is likely to be a water fairy type. I mentioned it's represented by a squid or an octopus, so it would make a lot of sense for it to be at least part water type, so water fairy possibly. They could also not decide to carry the fairy type through this sort of this quad, I'm going to call it, and they could also just switch it out, so it could either be a water ghost type since it's based on the underworld, or a water psychic type since it's the teacher of magic, stuff like that. Maybe even water dark, because obviously that's apparently the depiction of death and evil and such. Then we have Kane. I believe it will be a fire fairy type, or have fire related to it at some point. Why? Well, because it's the highest of all. It's the creator, and it gives life associated with the dawn, the sun and the sky. So very, dawn, it's bright at dawn because the sun rises, sun is hot fire, sky tends to be nice and shiny. So fire fairy would work. Or they could get, if they were going to carry on the fairy theme, it could be fire flying, because of course dawn, sun and the sky, so the sky could give you the flying section. Now of course we've had many fire flying legendaries though, like Moltres, Ho-Oh, so maybe not, but we shall see. And then finally we have Lono. If it's going to be based off of Lono, a grass fairy typing would make a lot of sense, mainly because it's associated with fertility and agriculture, both sort of life-giving processes, as well as agriculture being based on growing things, so grass makes a lot of sense there. Or if they weren't going to carry the fairy typing along, they could also make it grass ground, because obviously agriculture, growing stuff out of the ground. Music and peace also fit this theme, since many grass type Pokemon over the years have been shown to be like little musicals, so it makes a lot of sense there. Then we also have the ability to talk about, because Tapu Koko has a very interesting and unique ability, as of we haven't seen it before. This is Elec Maker, which upon entering the battle causes electric terrain to be set basically. So similar to Drought, Drizzle, Sandstream and Snow Warning, in that it just causes something to happen when battle enters. Instead of being a weather effect, it is a terrain effect. Now terrain effects generally affect Pokemon standing only on the ground, so they don't affect flying types or levitating Pokemon. They have to be on the ground for it to affect them. And there are currently 3 types of terrain in Generation 6, so we can have a look at them quickly. First one is electric terrain. The 2 main things about this are that no Pokemon on the ground can go to sleep or be affected by something like Yawn, and also it powers up electric type moves when used against grounded Pokemon. Now, this is where it's interesting because it only affects grounded Pokemon. The Pokemon using the electric type move does not have to be on the ground. So for example, Tapu Koko is a sort of a levitating Pokemon, so it's going to get the bonus still if it uses it on a Pokemon on the ground, even though it itself is not on the ground, if that makes sense. The other 2 terrains are Misty and Grassy. Misty terrain, basically you can't be affected by any status, any non-volatile status. Confusion can still affect you, but any other status like Poison, Burn, etc. can't affect you if you're on the ground, of course. And also it lowers the power of Dragon type moves by 50% against grounded Pokemon. And then Grassy terrain, basically every turn, for every Pokemon that's on the ground, they will restore a 16th of their health points. So basically it's like leftovers if you're on the ground, as well as this also powers up grass type moves by 50%. Grassy terrain also has an extra sort of ability, which is Grass Pelt, which is related to it. Basically, Grass Pelt Pokemon get 50% extra defense when in grassy terrain. So, if there was a sort of a grassy terrain move that made it ability that made it happen, then you combine it with a Go-Goat. It's pretty powerful there. So, how would this fit in? Well, of course, we only have 3 here. So, if we were going to say, okay, every Guardian's going to have a terrain ability, then we have 1 missing. So either they're going to have to introduce some new terrain types in Generation 7, or we're just on the wrong path and they're going to do something different. Or there could be something else entirely. So we know that Tapu Koko has Elect Maker for electric terrain. Now, next up we'll look at Lono, who was the grass fairy we were talking about. Grassy terrain would obviously fit there very well. Now there's 2 left. We have our Canaloa and Carne, which were the water and fire types we were talking about. They could either introduce terrain types for these, for example, damp terrain for water and fiery terrain for fire, which would maybe, damp terrain obviously powering up water type moves, and fiery terrain powering up fire type moves, as well as also having a secondary effect. What this effect could be, we don't really know. It's a bit hard to figure out because I'm not making the games here, okay? Or they could say, okay, we're going to give Tapu Koko electric terrain ability, we're going to give Lono grassy terrain ability, and then because we have Canaloa and Carne, the water and fire types, we'll give them Drizzle and Drought because there were already existing ones for that. Because the reason they introduced terrain in the first place, in my opinion at least, I don't work on the game so I don't know, is because obviously had some, some weather effects, rain for water, sun for fire, sandstorm for ground, and rock and steel and such, and then also we had hail for snow. And that was it, then what do you do for, you can't really give a weather sort of effect for every other Pokemon, or every other type. Because what's your weather effect for grass types going to be? Like wind? Ooh, wind, I don't know. So it doesn't really work like that. So to do that, they introduced terrain to then give you the others, basically. So for one for grass, one for fairy, one for electricity. I mean, electricity, yeah, you have rain because it has the thunder there, but it's not really electricity weather, is it? So that's the reason I think they did it in. They put it in. So for them then to say, right, let's throw in a fire and a water terrain as well, because why not? That would seem a bit weird to me, since obviously you already have similar stuff with sun and sun and rain, and obviously then to use Drizzle and Drought with the terrain ones makes it's a bit weird. Okay, basically it's a bit weird. I don't know how they're going to do this. There's several ways they could do it, but the final thing we want to talk about in this video is the fact that Tapu Koko, as we saw, can make itself basically a I don't know what to call it, a statue, yeah? So it looks like a statue from a totem pole. So we have four guardians, 4 legendary guardians. Each of them will likely be a similar sort of design with the plates on their arms, so they can recede into this, I don't know what to call it, head form. And they could then stack the heads one on top of the other to form a totem pole. Now, this could mean, as well as having these 4 legendaries, there could be a final legendary for the Alola region, one over, final god, I guess you could call it. And obviously you might have to get all 4 of these guardians, bring them together in one place, take them to maybe the tree on the on the last island or something along those lines. They could stack on top of each other, and then this final god, final legendary, could be sort of revealed. The same thing could be achieved as well with something like the box legendary, you know, maybe you have to gather all 4 guardians, then you can successfully summon the box legendary to help you in your quest, or something like that. But it's very likely that these 4 will somehow have some effects together, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. But that is going to be it for this video, guys. So let me know what your thoughts on Tapu Koko and the other guardians are down below. What typings do you think the other 3 will be? We have Electric Fairy. Do you think it's going to have, you know, Water Fairy, Fire Fairy, Grass Fairy? Or do you think they're going to mix it up a bit so it's not as repetitive? So you have Electric Fairy, Water Ghost, Firefly, and Grass Ground, for example. Let me know what you think about that down below. And let me know what you think about they're going to do about the abilities. Do you think they're going to have terrain abilities across the board? Do you think they're going to throw Drizzle and Drought in for the fire and water ones? Or do you think something else is going to go on here? Let me know what you think down below. But for now, this is going to be it for me for today. I'll be seeing you next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, my friends.